Friedman.
Yeah, thanks. Hi guys. While we're on it, I just want to thank you to Mark for organizing the conference. He deserves a great applause. Great job, Mark. So hi. I think that most of you know Smashing magazine, right? Who of you know Smashing? Ooh, that's a nice quote. Okay, so as editor-in-chief on Smashing, I'm talking with many designers and developers worldwide. And most of the time, I always have this problem with them. And when I always start talking about design in general, something comes up. And I always have this feeling that something fishy is going on, that something is just wrong. So basically, this talk today is my personal revenge against something that I feel is really terribly wrong in our industry. And it has to do with inspiration. And per se, inspiration is a great thing. We're all creative people, right? We want to build cool stuff. And in order to do it, we need to get, well, inspired. However, I feel that very often we have a bit different idea of what inspiration actually means. So what is inspiration, right? You always maybe have this really cool vision of muse touching your shoulder, showing you the way to create something cool and impressive, right? And there's also always this fascinating, this fascinating moment when you suddenly walk somewhere, then you realize this is it. This is the moment which actually tells me I know how to build this stuff. I know exactly what to build, right? This is kind of something that I think when I think of inspiration. And then if you look in the dictionary, you will find, well, in definitions like this one. Inspiration is a divine influence or action on a person believed to qualify him or her to receive and communicate sacred revelation. Okay? Just think about it for a while. Is it really a definition that you would come up with immediately if I asked you what it is? I don't think so. My mouse doesn't work again. Okay. So the problem I have with inspiration is that very often the inspiration that we seek online is of an entirely different nature. So we go to sites like Dribbble, right? Who of you has a Dribbble account? Okay, and it's okay. Dribbble is a great website. But still, I think that we spend too much time exploring what other designers do. And of course, we don't want to reinvent the wheel every single time, right? We want to build upon what other designers do and improve, right? But I think often we get carried away by shiny and exciting pictures. And the problem is that it has become the search for this visual inspiration, for many of us, has become the central entry point for every new design project, which I think is terribly wrong. And we also collect these reusable design examples. Each of us probably has this wonderful toolkit of nice navigations or nice examples of body copy, nice examples of tooltips and so on. So whenever we have a new project, we go to our favorite toolkit, right? Then we grab something from it and then it's there. Or at least it serves as a foundation for our project, which is, I think, wrong. And we love trends, right? Who of you knows Silverback or the design of Silverback? Everybody has seen it at some point, right? This wonderful parallax effect, and it's fantastic, it's wonderful. But over time, everybody started using parallax effect. This is just how trends work, right? And I think that trends are extremely overrated. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that we tend to adopt them way too quickly. And sometimes we're getting carried away by their originality rather than their purpose. And this should not be the case. And in general, this is a problem I actually mentioned in the beginning. We are drowning in this ocean of visual inspiration. So have many people coming to me and saying, hey, I have a client who wants to have a new project, right? So how do I start a conversation with him? And most of the time, the designers say, well, I would ask a couple of questions about the company and so on. And then I would ask a question of, what kind of visual style do you like? What do your competitors do? Have you done some research and so on in terms of visual style you want to have? And I think that's the wrong question to ask. Because this is what we should do. Of course, Companies have their branding guidelines and so on. But it's not up to them, should not be up to them, to actually think about, in visual terms, about what they want to create. Because in the end, we would end up with something like this. A mosaic of ideas, which taken from different places, put together, and look kind of shiny, right? But don't have a meaning or a purpose, right? And also, when I think about this whole issue, for some reason I think about this image, which I like a lot. I think that, particularly in the last years, we are moving away from the core of our work, which should be problem solving. It shouldn't be about pictures. Aesthetics is important, but it shouldn't be the core of what we do. And the more we move away, the more superficial and generic our designs become. Let me give you an example. This is a website which was created by a UK government to inform future students about tuition fees and well, university opportunities. And it's pretty nice design, it's pretty decent, it's very clear navigation, right? You have 6 places you can go to, which is okay. And this is what I like about the design. But what I don't like is basically everything else. Because they had all these textures and all these reflections and all these drop shadows and pop artifact kind of thing, which is kind of trendy and cool, right? But does it really fit here for a government-based website? Wouldn't user feel more comfortable with something like this? Because honestly, government websites are not supposed to be funny or cool or shiny. It's supposed to be boring, and you know, it's okay. Boring is not bad. Who says that boring is bad? They're informative, and that's what matters, right? Another example, one of my favorite ones. So I have 3 thermometers at home, right? And I'm fine with thermometers, right? I'm not a big fan of thermometers, right? But Theo is one, right? He's a big, he's like into thermometers, really, right? And this guy is also, it was I think Vancouver Coastal Services, whatever. They actually wanted to motivate people to use more thermometers at home, which is a great idea, per se. But they use this character, Theo, who is really like pushing the envelope, right? And did you notice the wonderful button at the top? Can you read it? Are you hot enough? I mean, come on. It's like, okay. I really don't think that elderly people would feel comfortable with a design like this one. If they want to learn something about thermometers, something more boring and less shiny would work just fine. Such inspired design, I often trying to be cool and shiny or and impress, but I think that in the end, they're kind of stuck in this trend trap, which is personally for me something like they're doing something just for the sake of visual interest, without actually thinking about the purpose of it. And what we should strive for is something completely different. To strive for holistic designs, where the existence of every single design element is actually proved, well, how should I put it best? Where it's actually backed up by the meaning of the design itself. So here's just an opposite example of how it could look like. This is a site for a conference in US, I guess. And they also have this kind of superheroes robot thing going on, right? But, well, this is what the conference is kind of about. It's a technical thing, right? And it's okay. Why shouldn't they use it, right? And so what if they have the largest footer I've ever seen? So what's wrong with that? At least it's a perfect fit here. It wouldn't fit in the previous example, however, right? So the main point I want to make here is that I think that when we look at a design on the internet, be it on Dribble or anywhere else, we don't actually see a design. Because what we do is we're experiencing it. And it's very much like if you go to a theater and enjoy a performance there. Because you have no idea about the decisions made. You actually can see the result, but you don't know what's going on. You might recognize the director's signature, for example, but you can't tell more, right? Or if you think about it differently, it's more like this. Now everybody thinks, what the hell is it? Yeah? Shiny black box. Because have no idea about decisions, made decisions or rejected decisions. Have no idea about problems, that the designers had, or maybe the client had, or maybe the users had. Have no idea about requirements or constraints, be it technical constraints, budget constraints, or time constraints. We just have no idea, right? We have no idea about testing. Was it tested at all? Was A/B testing going on or not? We have no idea. So what we're missing is a context. And here I want you really to think about this sentence here. Every time I look at a design, we're reading the language of design expressed differently. We might understand the vocabulary of single words, but we do not understand the meaning of sentences. Can you relate to that? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Okay. So what we miss in all these designs out there is the invisible side of those designs. Something that was going on before it was put online. And honestly, I do think that good design is invisible. It doesn't mean that good design is only invisible, but I think that sometimes it's way too underrated compared to its visual counterpart. And in order to understand why good design is invisible, we need to think about differently about the world around us. Because I'm pretty sure that most of you haven't paid attention to the design of this room. Have you? Have you noticed where the lights are? Actually? Have you noticed how the chairs are kind of put together? Have you noticed the fabric of the chair as well? Maybe slightly, but I'm pretty sure that not really in detail. So every single thing that we have here or anywhere was designed at some point, right, by someone. And it's not just about things that we have or don't have, it's also about the positions of all these objects together, like positioning and presentation, how they're placed against each other and so on. It was all designed by someone at some point. Of course, some things are better designed than others, right? And some things are so well designed that we don't notice them anymore. And my favorite example is a cup of coffee you're actually using every single day when you go to work or if you're in the office. It's not something that you think about in terms of design, right? It's something that you use every single day. So over time, it becomes invisible. You don't notice it anymore. You're just using it. It might have never existed, it might have never existed. You can't tell. So our experience of these things that we're actually used to is invisible. It's almost beyond form and function. And actually, humans are creatures of habit, right? And we get used to things very quickly. And they really become an ordinary part of our lives. So we don't notice them anymore. Until something happens. Until something breaks. Because at this point, we kind of see, oh, maybe this cup I had, maybe it wasn't well designed. It had design flaws, maybe it had design qualities, right? So we're starting thinking about the design at the moment when it breaks. And I think that the same holds true for web design as well. This is an example. A friend of mine, a website friend of mine sent me a couple of months ago, where he asked me to find something on the site. I don't speak Japanese. I had no idea what's going on there. Kind of understood that it's a retail store or something. Had no idea what they're selling. Kind of could, well, maybe guess something from the images. And he asked me to find it, find a specific detail about a specific product. And guess what? I found it. It took me a couple of minutes, of course, but I found it. It was this wonderful price tag somewhere on the middle of this page. Look how beautiful it is, right? And it was this wonderful tag in the middle of the page, which I found. I don't speak Japanese at all, right? And I ended up seamlessly clicking through all these Japanese weird characters I don't understand, and I found it, right? For me, it's a nice example of beautiful, invisible design. Because I stopped noticing it because it worked. And then there are sites like this one. Do we have fans of T-Mobile in here? Real fans, no? Not even one? Come on. Okay, 2, 3. Okay. So I have a T-Mobile, my provider is T-Mobile. I still don't like them though. If you go to a T-Mobile website, this is the way they actually chose to explain to the potential clients the terms of agreements for the contracts. It's not very readable if you ask me, but it's just my opinion. And I think every single time someone comes to this site and wants to read this damn thing, he feels that something is going on, something wrong is going on. So he feels that something is broken. I wouldn't feel comfortable reading it. Or we have sites like this one. I mean, well, sometimes the design gets in the way. Okay, and sometimes we need to click around things and all that. This is not a good invisible design. It's not a good design at all. But it's a bad example of invisible design too. And then there are sites like this one, which is, hello, the biggest major newspaper in Germany, right? Vitaly. This is how they chose to greet their visitors. Like now, imagine if you were going to a grocery store, for example, and someone would stand there trying to push you something all the time. You still would probably move him away and then move him away again, another one, and then go to find a damn bottle of wine. And we do it online. We would click away all the advertising to find these two weird sentences which are written up in poor German. Something is wrong with us, obviously. I mean, should be studied by anthropologists or something, I don't know. So I think that good design strikes a balance between elegance and invisibility. So I see design actually as a double-headed beast, because the one head is the invisible part, and the other head is the one we actually know pretty well. It's the visible one. And of course, just to make it clear here, invisible design relates to function and purpose rather than appearance. But I think I made it pretty clear by now. Okay. So I'm talking about this invisible thing and what does it actually mean? What is the essence of it? What are elements of it? How can you actually quantify it? How can you measure it, right? And I've been thinking about it for a long time. What I want to present now is kind of my personal view of what it means and what we should pay more attention to. But it's really more like a dialogue. I want you all to think about it, and I want you to, well, come to me and discuss it with me, because really, maybe all I'm talking right now is bullshit. I mean, we're just all people, right? You can come to me and tell me why I'm wrong. For me, invisible design is a framework for our design decisions. It forces us to approach design problems from a different angle. And I also see it as a helpful tool and the mindset for our workflow. And the most important part for me is that it makes us think about the substance of our decisions. And substance is very important here, because whenever we're talking with writers and other colleagues for Smashing who want to write an article or are doing editing and so on, this term of substance always comes up. And for me, it means having something that is really tangible, something that has a value, a magnitude, a certain meaning and purpose. It's not just something you could click away. It's something you would keep. It's something you would go back to every single time if you think about this problem or something what is explained in the article. When I think about substance, I think about this image. For me, doing work online should be very much like doing work, well, offline, but with strict focus on doing quality work. So for me, it's really about creating artifacts which are enduring, which are helpful, and which stay for a long time. It's really about craftsmanship, or I know how to put it best, being good at what you do, being proud of what you do. This is what is important. This is what makes substance so important. And it combines 6 key qualities, which I think most of you probably use anyway in your everyday work. And the first one is the power of idea. Because I think invisible design should be based and driven by a timeless idea. It shouldn't rely on trickery for its effect, like design trends and so on. Instead, it should convey a message, because this is what we're actually supposed to do anyway, right? So, and actually there is always an idea to be found in a problem. And the thing that we as designers should do, we need to go out, study this problem and find something interesting about it that is worth bringing to the forefront, which would help our clients actually brings their message to the users. And it should be tailored to the client's needs. You might think, shouldn't we talk about users here? Aren't users more important? Because that primarily what we do, we find solutions for the problems that our clients have. So let me give you an example. This is a website which was built by, I think, TV company in Zurich, and they wanted to, promote Zurich in general, and also kind of dedicate a special website to this Langstrasse Zurich. And what they did, they kind of integrated this really cool experience as if you were traveling across the city, right? It's not difficult, it's just HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? But it's wonderful, because they could have put a couple of images and videos on the site. That would be it. Instead, they also made it like real experience, where you also see tweets appearing live in real time, based on the geographic position of you on the street, right? Which is a great idea. You can even switch to the night view if you prefer, and it's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And then there's this example. How many of you have seen this site already? Okay. For the rest of you, be prepared. This will change your life forever. And I mean seriously, it will change your life forever, in a good way, however. So there is an artist in Spain whose name is Ivan Ferrero, and he's a musician. So he chose this design for his website. It reminds you of something, I guess. It's a teletext, right? It's really cool. It has even 500 or 600 keyboard shortcuts, which you all can use. It's nice, actually. And if you look at it, okay, it's a weird website, but it's still, well, there is information on it. So you can click on the navigation, you can actually get informed about his gigs and what he does and so on. And in the end, well, if you click at some point somewhere, you will get to this, page which actually just contains information that he wants to present. And it's readable. It's kind of okay, right? Well, I was really curious about the site, so I was clicking everywhere because I had no idea what all these buttons mean. And at some point, I reached this page, which was really weird. I wanted to go out, and then I broke it completely. So, okay, it's not the best design I've ever seen, but at least he tried to do something creative and interesting, and so he failed. So what? At least he's really tried it. And it's better, much better, to do something crazy, boring maybe, weird, do something crazy, weird, than to be boring, isn't it? And maybe he actually reached his goal. Maybe this is exactly what he wanted to do. Maybe he wanted me to talk to you about this. Who knows? But of course, we talked about idea now, but idea alone is not enough. Because ideas are very abstract and fragile creatures. They want to be tamed, they want to be shamed, they want to be brought to life, right? This is why visual is becoming important. Because invisible design should always have a value, a purpose, and a meaning. It should have a character. It also should have a consistent and authentic voice. Because visual is basically something that gives this intangible idea a tangible form, something that shapes it and make it real. And I have a nice example for that too. So, how many of you have seen this site? Okay, this will change your life forever as well. Also in a good way, however. So, basically this is just a restaurant chain, Tijuana Flats, and they kind of chose this heavy graphic mode, right? So, as you scroll the page, there's a lot going on, right? It's colorful, it's shiny, it's wonderful actually. So, I actually spent a lot of time reading all of it and checking all of it. So in the end, I reached at this Tijuana Flats manifesto, which actually explains why they're designing like this. And it turned out well, this is who they are. This is the characters. This is just who they are. They use all these characters, all this wonderful imagery and so on, just because they really think that this is how they should express themselves. And what's wrong with that? I mean, we were thinking, okay, this is weird, right? But this is just who they are, and it's great. So if you go to the restaurant, actually, you'll find a printed menu which looks like this, where you also have these characters which appear on the website as well. Okay? And it's great. And if you go to the restaurant itself, you will find the walls which are decorated in this way as well. Also using all these characters appearing everywhere, which is great. It's probably the best example of holistic design I've ever seen. Actually, to be honest, I was thinking that these kids over there are drawn because they don't look very real on the image. But it's okay, I guess. So of course, we want the website to have a nice idea. We want this idea to be shaped and formed, but it's not enough. We want it to make useful for our readers, for our users. So invisible design should never cry for attention. Should never say, hey, look at me, right? Instead, it should stand by the side and tell, hey, look over here, or click this button, or go over there, for example. And it's really about serving a purpose, but not only that. It's about serving a purpose very well, going beyond the expectations your users have. So very often, when you think about usability, you think about sticking to best practices. You know where the search box should be and so on, right? But I really want to encourage you to experiment, because usability is not something that is, you know, like written rule which should be there for all times. I really think that usability can benefit from experimentation. Here's an example for that. So actually, I love going to different foreign websites I don't understand at all. Just look how the design looks like. And this was on one of the sites I stumbled upon. And this is a shoe store. And I don't speak Swedish. Is someone here speaking Swedish? Cool. That's helpful. So I'm also not a big fan of shoes, right? But if I need one, I will probably find it pretty difficult to actually make it very clear what exactly I want. So instead of really throwing me a drop-down with all these names, which I wouldn't understand at all, they actually show me pictures of shoes, forms, right, which is great. And I can also pick a color, and I can also pick the brand I want to have and the size, all in one page on the front page. How wonderful is that? I want to buy a shoe, right, a pair of shoes, hopefully. So I go to the site, and here I've got it. Just all I needed was one page. For example, Bonlook used the same approach for their glasses. I would feel really terribly uncomfortable trying to describe any type of glasses I see over there. I can just look at it and I get it right away. And then there are sites like this one, where when I come to the site, I think, well, actually I just want to book a hotel room, and you're trying to, well, you know, to offer me a great deal, and you want me to do this and that, but I don't want it. So why are you pushing it to me, right? This is a basic example of where designers are thinking about what they need to show rather than what users want to see, right? Which is just bad. And then you go to Delta Airlines, which is basically a very similar type of a website. And so you want to book a trip. Okay, you have 2 fields. You want to check your trips. Okay, you have 3 fields. You want to check in? Okay, 2 fields. You want to check your flight status? Okay, right away, 1 field. And if you want more information and more tools, okay, they're available as well. But the interface is so great. It's just what you need, right? You don't need any more. At this point, you just want to book the stamp ticket or check your flight status. That's it. So we need to have a nice idea. We need to bring it to life. We need to make it useful to our readers. And then we need to verify that the decisions we made are actually making sense in terms of usefulness, right? So we need to make sure that our design decisions are never guesswork. We should have informed and qualified design decisions. And it looks like I'm telling you ABC, right? But how many of you actually use A/B testing intensively in every single project? None. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Why? Just tell me why. Isn't testing important? Isn't A/B testing important? I use other kinds of tests. If you really want to make sure that your users are happy with results and that you actually get a good conversion rate, why don't we test? This is actually something I see all the time. No? Nobody? Yeah, I'm just wondering. It's not like I'm trying to insult you. I'm just wondering why it's this way. I think it's really weird, actually. Because what we should do, we should always test. And we should always try to think, what I think is important, we should always try to think about different variations of different design elements. We should create different color schemes, we should create different buttons, we should create different copies of buttons and text we put online, and then test them to make sure the best one actually gets to the final stage, to the final design. Right? Am I wrong? Tell me if I'm wrong. Yes? Okay. I don't think that testing later in the final stage of the website process is a good idea, to be honest. Yeah? Right, but what I'm saying here is that when you're designing, you should be thinking about different variations already, because if you do it in the very end, you then need to go back to the whole process, to the very beginning or to the middle of the process you were at this stage, and then it's kind of counterproductive. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, we can talk about it. Okay. 10 minutes, okay. So I stumbled upon this site a couple of months ago, and it's a very decent, very wonderful website. It took me a while to actually find the email address. Can you find it? Yeah. It took me actually 2 minutes to find it because I was thinking that this area in the bottom, that's a contact form, but it isn't. So it took me a while. I don't know if the design performs well or not, but it would be wise to actually test it. And then there are companies like 37 Signals, where testing is really important and crucial. So for that reason, for one of the projects, they actually wanted to do a redesign. So they had the old version, original design, and then they created a new one, which is on the right, which is long-form design. So they measured it and performed better, 37.5% better. Okay, they could have stopped at this point, but instead, they were thinking, okay, why don't we ask a couple of our customers how happy they are with our service, and then we integrate the testimonials with their photos on the site, and then see how it performs. Okay, this is what they call personal design, and perform better, right? Okay, they could have stopped at this point, but they went further, and they tested, okay, what if we add this information we stripped away in the previous example, and how would it perform? Performed worse, could have stopped at this point, but instead they asked 20 more customers to submit their pictures and to submit their testimonials, right? And then they tested them all. And then they ended up with this poor guy who is now probably stuck on high-rise for I don't know how many ages, right? Although I think actually that they're testing now again. I'm not sure. You need to check it out. But they went with him because they tested. And it just shows that you can be really creative when it comes to testing. It's not like you can test buttons and you can test other things. You can test it all. You just need to be creative about it. What I also think is important is that we also pay a lot of attention to the quality of work we're doing. So the design, invisible design, is very demanding. For every single thing we put out there, we need to make sure that we give it the best quality, the best level of quality we can afford for it. And you know, just pixel pushers, just perfectionists, people who love to push pixels by 2 pixels and push images by 2 pixels and so on, change the color of background because it doesn't work apparently. Well, I'm one of them, right? And I know people who don't like working with me, so who cares? I don't care. I mean, seriously, if I can be proud of the product I deliver in the end, this is the only thing that matters to me. Because there is my signature behind it, and my name as well. And if you think about quality, it can be really every single thing. It can be quality of our design decisions, can be quality of our content, right? For example, we at Smashing have a strict publishing policy, which makes it very specific and very clear that we would never publish sponsored posts, would never compromise the editorial integrity. There is always a clear separation between advertising and content. Quality of our deliverables, and on, right? This is always something to think about, and I'm very sure that most of you do it anyway. So what is also important is that we covered so far things that are not really communicating directly. This is something that is in the background. But language is really something that speaks directly to the user. So how invisible design communicates depends on the words we choose and how we use them. And it shouldn't be too informative, because then it's boring, and it shouldn't be too engaging, because, well, then it's just a promotion. You should always find a balance between both. And just one of those final examples. Here is a quote from Charles Dickens, from one of his books. The empty dog kennel was filled up with a great dog, deep-mouthed and black-haired like him, and he was very angry at the sight of me, and sprang out to get at me. How do you feel when you read it? Do you feel something at all? Or nothing? Okay. Now compare this with this. Eating well is as important as living well. So everything we offer is made from great, fresh-tasting ingredients. Fresh-tasting, okay? Ingredients. Do you notice any difference? I think you do, right? So the problem I have with this quote is it could be everywhere. It could be on McDonald's, it could be Burger King, it could be Starbucks, it could be everywhere. And in fact, it is on Starbucks. So I have a lot of respect for Starbucks, but I don't think that's a great approach to communicate their values to the customers. And then there are examples like everybody knows Innocent these days, right? Innocent, where they actually put a lot of time, a lot of efforts into producing and crafting wonderful copy. So even on the backs of, I don't know what it's called, labels of the bottles, you will have these little wonderful stories which actually change from time to time. So the customers will actually think, okay, I actually want to read this another story, maybe there's a next issue coming or something, and they would buy this bottle. And that's great. It's just great. Or if you go online on their site, you'll find fancy joining our family, love, friendship, but no pocket money. So if you translate it to business English, it's basically sign up for our newsletter, right? So okay, it's not very clear, of course, but if you go on the site, you might understand what it means. It wouldn't work everywhere, but I think that it would work in some places. And then we also have something like, by the way, we will never ever pass the details on to anyone else, but you knew it anyway, didn't you? It's just a nice little touch which makes a big difference. So I'll skip a couple of slides here, because I want to talk about storytelling. And storytelling is something that kept me awake for many months now, and it's something that I really want you to pay a lot of attention to. Because storytelling is wonderful. And the best part about it is we know exactly how it works. Well, we have all been kids, apparently, and we always had this weird uncle or grandmother coming to us and starting telling a story, right? And then we're sitting there and we're listening. We're sitting and listening. And at some point we just want to know how the story ends, right? This is also the reason why we watch so many boring movies, boring old movies. Because, well, actually we just want to know how it ends, right? And it's great. Storytelling is powerful, and we can use it on the web as well. Because stories can inspire and illuminate. And they can help us, as designers, empathize with users but they can also help our users empathize with our websites. So how many of you know this movie? It's, okay, it's Coffee and Cigarettes, and it's actually one of my favorite movies ever, like ever, right? And I remember vividly, I was actually wanted to delete it from my hard drive, so I actually just wanted to briefly look into it, and then I was really in the movie, and I couldn't stop watching. It was like 4 a.m., and I ended up spending 2 hours or so just watching the movie. And it was really weird, because basically what they do is, they come together, they lit a cigarette, they pour a cup of coffee, and then they talk stories to each other. And that's it. But it was so captivating that I really felt that like I'm a part of something. I want to know how it ends, no matter what happens, even if it's at night at 4 a.m. So I have something for you. What if we go out and approach design like writers approach stories? Because, well, it's been done before. Comic books is just how it actually started, right? Had this folklore, of course, but over time, this new medium has developed. And I think that we could do it in web design as well. Because we have this, we don't actually use these wonderful qualities like mystery and suspense and uncertainty and intrigue and romance and so on. And there are so many techniques we can use too, like cliffhanger effect, flashback, game mechanics and so on. We can use it all. I just think that sometimes we don't go this extra mile. In fact, we can see powerful stories in our user interfaces. And I think that all of you have seen Ben the Bodyguard website, right? No? Who saw it? Okay. And the reason why you've seen it is because it uses storytelling. So for those of you who don't know it, basically you come on the site, and then you are being, well, this is basically what you see. A greeting from strange, weird French man talking to you partly in broken French. And then as you scroll the page, the story unfolds, right? And at some point it gets more involved, and then you are asked to sign up, right? And then a couple of months after the release, they actually released the iPhone app, which also uses this character, which also tries to integrate him everywhere. And he also speaks this weird French. But so what? Why not? It's a wonderful, cute character, and they're using it. It's great. Another recent example is this site by Slavery Footprint. So you come on the site. This is what you see when you come to it. How many slaves work for you? And this is kind of, okay, this is weird. And then you start exploring. And you scroll down again, the story unfolds itself, and there is this always kind of puzzled together by different hands and so on, which is great. It's really wonderful. Of course, it wouldn't work everywhere, but it perfectly works here for this kind of website. And I just think that we could explore it in different kinds of websites as well. Because in the end, we are storytellers. This is what we do for a living. We just tell stories from our clients to our users. And we also have all kinds of scenarios and all these things that are actually an integral part of our UX process. They're all there. We just need to go this extra mile. Just something to think for a while. And it's important that we actually use all of these features, all of these things I mentioned, that we use them continuously in our project. Because this is what drives this invisibility over time, drives invisibility to our design. This is what our users will actually expect and experience if they surf a website for a long time. It should become invisible. So just to conclude, I think that our work would benefit from a stronger focus on its invisible side. But aesthetics is important. So good designers can see both the forest and the trees, the visible and invisible halves of design. So what I want you to do, I want you to go out and take the best of both worlds and work as hard as you can, fight as hard as you can to produce the best and the most wonderful user experience for our users. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaly.